What if I told you that if you don't talk to your people about their careers, the competition will? In today's episode, we share the business benefits of having a career conversation, help you get to grips with the landscape for career navigation, and give you some real-world examples of how the career equation is transforming retention and mobility in world-class organizations. We help you get to grips with where career dialogue and a career philosophy could sit in your people and talent strategy. So join us for the conversation and find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or just pick up the phone and let's have a chat.
You'll spend 80,000 hours at work. You're here because you want those hours to count. Hi, I'm Zoë Schofield.
And I'm Erica Sosna. A warm welcome to the Career Equation podcast. On this podcast, we take time out from our award-winning careers consultancy to share a game-changing formula to help you solve the sum of your life.
Each week, we and our guests use the career equation to explore their story so far and help them unlock the secrets of a fulfilling career.
It's the Career Equation podcast, and it's you and me, Zoe. Lovely to see you again.
Absolutely. Time flies. I can't believe we're nearly through the end of the year. And here we are again, having a fabulous conversation about careers, coaches, and what matters to people.
And we're in double figures now as well for the podcast. We've managed to break through the number 10 barrier and move into double figures. So I would just want to give us a toot for doing that as well.
Absolutely. It's fabulous, isn't it?
I'm really proud of us. And hopefully, given the feedback, we're creating some really good value. So please do keep leaving good feedback for us and getting in touch with us with your ideas. Today, we're talking about the business case for career conversations, why they matter to businesses, to organizations, and of course, to the individuals in them. And I know that when we started working with the career equation now, good 7 years ago, the first conversations I was having with organizations, they would ask me, but why would I talk to my people about their careers? If I talk to them about their careers, won't they leave? And I thought this was very sweet and endearing of them because most of these organizations are world-class destinations in their field. So they didn't really need to worry so much because people worked really, really hard to get there. But that anxiety just goes to show how far we've come actually through the pandemic and out the other side. Because now when we talk to people about career conversations, they don't say, why would I do that? They say, how would I do that? But what I want us to do today is to kind of give some of that recap and backstory, because you may be on board with the idea about why career conversations are important and need to sell that to somebody else in your organization to influence them to see the benefits. Or you might be listening to this and saying, yeah, but why are they important? And won't they leave if I talk to them? And we know that if you're not talking to your people, the competition are. So we want to give you some of the frames for what the business benefits of this can be and how it can be useful.
Absolutely. And I think what's so empowering is the fact that organizations that we've worked with are really staggered once they've discovered how simple and really beneficial it can be to all sorts of things, from bottom line to performance, productivity, retention, mobility, all really accelerated through the culture of a really, really good quality career conversation. And you don't have to just take our word for it. Lots of organizations like Savills, AXA, Microsoft, Assault Systems, Thales, Capital One, and so many more have really begun to use the career equation as their go-to model in their organizations.
And indeed, they keep adding it and embedding it because one size fits all. Everyone in their organization can benefit from it. So let's talk a little bit about what got world-class organizations like that on board to trust us and to trust the career equation and introduce it to their talent. And why would they add this into the mix of all of the conversations that already happen in organizations, whether it's performance dialogue, whether it's the meeting overload that we're all experiencing? How can we convince you that this gave them something that they didn't have before and are continuing to invest in it as a core part of their retention strategy?
Absolutely. And we'll give you some environmental context about why these moments are really more relevant than ever from a professional and personal career context. We'll tell you a few stories as well of how this really has made a difference in firms like yours. And I think what I would say is that personalization is really key at the moment when it comes to career success and fulfilling careers and cultures within careers in organizations. And, post-pandemic, everyone has a different feel, I think, for what work really means to them, where it fits within their lives. And they definitely expect more personalization in terms of what they experience at work, and they're wanting it to be more tailored. And I think Gen Z are really leading the way when it comes to this in terms of expectations in relation to their careers. And there's a real key business benefit to deeply understanding what matters to your people, where you put them in terms of the roles. Does that align with their career aspirations? Are you helping them to develop in a way that matters to them, in terms of how they want to take their growth, their personal growth? So career development is really the number one reason why people leave, because they don't see the future for them in the organization in line with what really does matter to them. So, I think that's one of the key things.
Yeah. And you see that, when you look at statistics and data about why people leave organizations, career development is the number one. And of course, that's a really broad statement, career development. Like, what do they mean by career development? Do they mean next step in a promotion? Do they mean the chance to do more interesting, complex work? Do they want the chance to be part of a mobility or to, work or live somewhere else? You won't know the answer to that unless you're having career conversations. And that's really about how we get under the skin of that personalization promise. And of course, the job for life is now dead. People are making more moves more frequently. They're more comfortable doing so when they feel that it's in their best interest. They just don't have the same allegiance and sense of loyalty, for want of a better word. If it isn't working for them, they're going to make the move. But the issue about not having a career conversation is that far too often, businesses tell us when they get that surprise resignation or they do the exit interview, hey, I could have totally met that. I could have totally met what somebody wanted and the reason that they left if I'd have known and had a chance to meet it. And who wouldn't like a heads up? Because we all know the cost emotionally, practically, time-wise, when you lose somebody good. So career conversation fundamentally is a way to do that check-in before they check out. Understanding what their next move is likely to be and where and how you might have an opportunity to meet that gives you a critical heads up that you're just going to lose out on if you only start talking about careers and what's next at the exit interview.
Absolutely. You want to know, don't you, way in advance if someone's a flight risk. And the only way you'll do that is by having a really good conversation with someone to find out what's going on for them right now. And that's super important, particularly if you work in organizations that are volatile, unpredictable, complex, because if things are changing really fast in the organization, people need to be able to clearly work out, well, where do I fit in this? What matters to me? What matters to the organization? How can I have that conversation? And if they don't feel they've got that kind of relationship, they won't have the conversation with you. They'll find somewhere else where they can see their future.
Yeah. And the need to sort of adapt repeatedly to a changing environment, whether you're doing that within the organization or even the team that you're in, or whether you're doing that in the wider world, is a key 21st century career skill set. So equipping people to be able to do that so they can function well in and adapt to your changing climate is a good service to them. And one of the best ways to support them to do that is to help them to pinpoint their skills, their direction of travel, the way that they can impact the business, and understanding where their skills might find opportunity within a volatile environment. So being able to have and possess the skill of agility in itself is a real benefit. And when you make that time to help people to know what do they want out of their careers, to be able to better articulate what are those skill sets and interests, to know how they measure success, you make it much easier for them to take ownership, to own their career, to find the right role. And when you understand where they want to go, you can easily move them into new products, new opportunities, new geographies, and that helps both you and the business flourish. Because fundamentally what you're doing is giving them the technology to be able to own and navigate their career GPS, if you like, within the context of a fast-paced, ever-changing environment. A good example of this was a program that we ran and still run actually for high potentials in insurance and tech environments, where we were working with that key level just below the C-suite. So really, really critical in terms of succession planning. And giving these sort of high achievers, highly motivated, ambitious people the opportunity to step back and say, where do I want to be? What kind of experiences do I want to have? And what are the sort of stepping stones in terms of the gaps in my development or my expertise that would stand between me and that opportunity in the organization? That has been a wonderful and very valuable way to harvest that insight so that both the organization and the individual build the plan and the map that is fit for each person for their succession plan. So it's a good example of how quickly this material can be useful and become embedded into your succession and retention strategy.
Absolutely. And I think what's really nice, it takes the pressure off managers. We often hear, don't we, Erica, that managers feel a bit shy almost to discuss careers. And it's often based on the wrong assumption that they'll feel like they just want to talk to me about promotion or more money. And I don't have that at my fingertips at my disposal at the moment. And what our experience is, actually, they often want to talk about much more than that. They want to get into the nitty gritty of what matters to them, of their aspirations, where they see their future. Then the discussion about how does that align with the business and what are the things that I want to experience more throughout my career. So whilst those sorts of initial symbols, if you like, of success around promotion or money might initially be what you're thinking they're going to ask for, often the conversation is much, much deeper than that and much more revealing for both you and the individual, because you don't have to say yes to all of their demands. What you want to do, as Erica has said, is make sure they're clear that it's their career. They own it and they can drive it. But what you're there to do is to really support them, to help nurture them, help them grow, show them the opportunities, include them in your network, help them build their own network so that you both understand where it is in terms of the direction of travel that they want to go in and how that can be achieved within the organization.
And I think really key to that is asking the right questions, because I think when managers in particular think about career conversations, they think about, where do you want to be in 10 years? Or, do you want to take my job? And those just aren't questions that are part of the framework of the equation. The equation is much more about, what is it the person wants to experience? What is it that they want to contribute? And how can we align with that development pathway so that it's a win-win really for everybody? And we all know that longer tenure, that greater engagement reduces that brain drain, and the costs of recruiting and training, equipping everybody. So the less that we can interrupt your business plans, the greater your continuity around your people, the better the results for the business fundamentally, and the easier, certainly, your life becomes as a manager. I think one of the things that always wins managers over is that when they discover that actually somebody's development is their delegation opportunity, that, if you know where somebody wants to go and they're really excited about developing a particular skill, you can often take something off your plate that you wouldn't have thought you could delegate to somebody else, and thereby grow and nurture their talent and free yourself up to grow and develop and focus on other areas too. So it's really, really important, I think, that managers come on board with understanding what a career conversation is and isn't, and why it might be for them. And for the individual, of course, the self-knowledge to be able to have a good career conversation, and for that not to feel like it's been sprung on them as a scary thing to do, is a fundamental skills gap. I mean, you can be a very highly qualified, very experienced individual, but never have been asked, so what do you love to do? Or how can we bring out the best in you? Or how do you measure success in your career? And that's a problem for the organization, because those people won't own and manage their careers because they fundamentally don't know how to. They don't have the tools to define the criteria and make the plans and talk about it. And when you gift them those things, because it really is a gift to fill in that gap, then they can take the ownership that you so desperately have been waiting for them to do, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, we know that sort of careers education piece is fundamentally missing, isn't it, from the education system? And so to be able to equip them with tools and techniques and questions and good thinking practices that will help them really, with you, co-design their career in terms of, instead of making poor choices or freezing. And then we know that those things can begin to affect personal performance at work as well. It really does set you apart. If you are a firm that really attends to career development in a way that takes a personal interest in people, you will set yourself apart from other organizations. You become the employer of choice because you're keen and invested in the future of people within your organization. And you see them as an individual and they feel seen and heard as an individual as well. It's a real win-win.
And of course, sometimes then they also return to you because they know that you know who they are and what they want, and the opportunity and the door is left open in a really positive way around their career, in a way that sometimes it isn't when it's a surprise or it's kind of jarring or awkward for everyone concerned. We had some conversations recently with the MD of Savills, Richard Rees, who, are an organization that's invested really in this idea and embedding it in their organization. And when I asked him why are you bringing careers discussions in at all these different levels? He's like, fundamentally, it's the right thing to do. We have people in long tenured, they're ambitious and smart, and we want them to make the most of their time and really enjoy their time at Savills. And we want to be able to make the most of them and to put them in the right places and support them to succeed. And indeed, I had a conversation recently with one of their board members, Sean, who said to me, I came to a 1-hour session with you some years ago where you outlined the career equation. And I can tell you that I use it every day in conversations I have with my talent. I can really quickly zone in using the skills, passion, impact, environment, which of these is functioning or malfunctioning for this person, to quickly solve a career challenge they might be having, or a productivity issue, or a conflict or tension or misunderstanding that we're going through. And that was amazing feedback. That one of the things that's really lovely about it is it's so quick and easy to use. And it's just a quick way for leaders, managers, mentors, coaches to get under the skin of the person in front of them and do a quick course correct to put the right person in the right place. It doesn't have to be a long-winded and detailed process, although there's value, of course, in doing that as well. It can also be a very quick way to laser in and get that insight to support someone in their career.
Absolutely. Just thinking there about how organizations have really used it to leverage diversity at senior levels. We've worked with the mentoring circle in real estate industry. We've worked with ISC in insurance, and also through Capital One is through their diversity accelerators for their folks as well, and Black Talent in Open University program. They really are beginning to embed the equation.
And at the end of the day, you're saving millions of quids, right? We all know that surprise resignations are really costly, and being able to put some people planning in place that doesn't just rest on assumptions about what we think people want. And indeed, we know that organizations also perform better when we've got greater diversity at senior levels and more mobility moving in those directions. All of those things are ways that we add commercial value and save on the bottom line by using a career conversation, because everyone knows the holy grail of talent management is to keep and to grow the best people. But when I ask a client, so where do I go to discuss my next move in X firm? Most firms don't know. They'll say, well, it should be your manager, but they're not actually sure that the manager is doing that in any consistent way. And what's so cool about a career conversation is it's such an easy to fill gap, and it generates such powerful results. You don't need new software or any expensive investment in like perks or equipment. You don't need an office refurb. You just need to retrofit, understanding where this person wants to go in life, and provide a space to reflect on that, which could be the manager, or it could be the mentor, or a learning colleague, or an external coach, and a place to capture that in your data set around them. And once you have those things, the results are pretty much guaranteed, and people are astonished by the level of ROI that they can have just from a very simple, scalable conversation. And, other models are available, but that is really one of the powers of the equation, although I don't know any other model as good as it in terms of speed, that it can scale even, across all ages, all industries. We work with all kinds of folk where we know a lot about what they do or nothing about what they do. And that's what's really empowering, I think, particularly for like HR and leaders, is that you can have a great career conversation, even if you don't know much about the job at hand that a person is performing or wants to perform.
Absolutely. And it really does help to embed sort of a career thinking, if you like, that goes a really long way in terms of moving people forward in their career and their growth. And we've worked across organizations like Mentoring Circle with real estate, ISC in terms of insurance, diversity accelerators with Capital One, and lots of organizations that have specific programs to really help support growth in particular demographics. And I think what's really helpful is to hear from people about what the difference it makes to the individuals on those programs. I can think of somebody recently who was on a graduate program who said, it really, really helped them at the end of the sort of program when they called it the guardrails come off, and the guardrails come off of a graduate program where you've really been supported throughout that journey. Having the equation to help them really think about, how do I articulate what matters to me at the moment and my sort of thriving spot, my sweet spot, if you like, in terms of my career. The equation really helped them to do that, to then navigate. So where do I go in this organization And how am I going to continue this growth beyond the graduate program? And that's super important because work is so emotive and emotional, isn't it? So people want to talk about their career. They want to sit with someone and really feel like they're co-designing their future with you. And the locus of that conversation should be in your organization and not elsewhere. When you invest in these programs, huge amount of time, huge amount of finance can go into developing really specific programs to support particular demographics in your organization. You don't want that richness, if you like, of the program to then disappear out the door because somebody hasn't found the place to continue to have that conversation. So the equation can really help you to do that.
Yes, I agree. I guess it's that scalability and versatility of the model that really makes it something that you can embed, at a global level, because you've got everything from the individual on the grad scheme, the apprenticeship scheme, the high potential scheme, the manager development program, having really quickly this kind of set of tools and insights that they can use to generate their own career navigation plan, but also to mentor, encourage and nurture the talent of others. But you've got something then that works both in the formal development programs that you're, dropping it into, but also in the informal conversations. There's a reason why the Career Equation book subheading is coaching a culture of career conversations, that we want it to be possible to just have that 5-minute coffee catch up and add some value to someone's career, as well as offering a deep dive within a structured programmatic framework. And that's the way that you enable something to go viral, isn't it? It's coming across an idea and the idea being transmissible and easy for lots of people to share and immediately have benefit from. And I think that's one of the really nice things about the equation is its simplicity. But, fundamentally, if you as an organization aren't making the time to have that conversation, then they are going to go elsewhere to have that conversation. Because if you spend 80,000 hours, an awful lot of your lifetime at work, you want to be able to talk to people about what's going on, where you see your direction of travel, what you want to experience and do more of. And so the locus of that conversation should really be in-house. Otherwise, it becomes with the recruiters or with the competition. And that's really heartbreaking. And look, most people still fall into their careers. They don't really have a design, they have a plan. So even if they're happy in your organization and with the roles that they're in at the moment, there will come a time where they'll start to ask the question, how did I get here? Do I want to be here? Do I want to stay here? And that series of choices, they need to know how to diagnose accurately what's working and not working. Because if they don't know how to make that choice in an informed way, informed about themselves, informed about what the company can offer, they will make it in an uninformed way. And that will result in all kinds of assumptions that they will have and that you will have about what's possible and not possible. You'll be wasting time and energy on giving them a development that they don't want. And you could miss opportunities to give them growth that could be easy to give if you just knew that they wanted it. And if you give them the tools to make good decisions and to know what their real career criteria is, then they can make considered decisions that really keep you in the loop and you work together to co-design their career path. So it's really a great gift to have a way for the business and the individuals to be able to quickly generate insight in this way.
Yeah, and I think having a really structured check-in really means you get advanced warning of those flight risks, before the final decisions are made, and the opportunity then to really adapt roles and meet their future sort of growth needs and wants really and desires. And of course, it saves you loads of time and capacity and money, in terms of, we all know that recruiting, training, contracting new people is so resource hungry as well as financial burden on the organization. So you really want to be able to hone in on those conversations early enough before that flight risk becomes a reality. So our simple model is really quick and effective at getting to the heart of things really quickly. And as Erica said, is really scalable across the organization. So it feels like a familiar language when people talk about their equation and talk about the things that matter most to them. Because as we said, if you aren't having a conversation, they will be taking it elsewhere. And what we do know is people begin to make a much better conscious decision off the back of continuing education programs. So for example, at Dassault Systems, their graduate program in terms of retention and attrition off the back of the program, initially you're looking at like 40% attrition, whereas that's down to 9% through consciously embedding thought and planning into the program around how we talk about careers, how we equip them to make good decisions off the back of the program, and how we are listening to the needs and wants for them and making sure that they find good homes off the back of the graduate programs.
Yeah, exactly. And at the other end as well with Dassault, again, their internal mobility for recruitment to senior roles in the European North region has gone up by 50%. And they attribute that to having a much better understanding about where people want to take their careers and a much greater willingness to help them make lateral moves that develop in that way. So that's really delightful to see. And they consider the equation to be integral to how that managed to happen. This little trumpet blow there. But look, in summary, the world of work is changed. Fundamentally, it's not going back. And therefore, personalization is really key to your people strategy, to your career philosophy, and to the expectation of the relationship that you will have with your talent. And many people still lack a good way of making decisions around careers. They don't have the technology for that. So they're overwhelmed, they're anxious about it, they make impulsive decisions, they potentially make bad decisions, and certainly they make decisions uninformed by a dialogue. So the more that you put in place a model that is the same for everyone, that is quick and easy to understand, and empower people to have both formal and informal ways of gathering the information and insight about themselves and about others, the better the insight is going to be about where you can place them and how to get the best out of them. And just having one model that's scalable just makes that much easier to do, much easier to track ROI, much easier to ensure quality, much easier to reduce any risk of misunderstanding or misinterpretation about what you consider a good career conversation to be. And in our case, there's a number of kind of tangible outputs so you can measure in terms of trackable ROI that also then mean you've got a quality output. You can guarantee the quality of the conversation by the output that comes out from it. And people are a lot more mobile and they will move now with quite limited information and at speed. They'll drop something and pick up something else. And you want to be in that early conversation where there might be a flight risk. And the more that careers is just part of the language, the dialogue, the relationship, the rapport that you have with people, the more transparent and open they will feel able to be earlier along the game. Does this mean you'll never, ever lose anyone ever again if you embed career conversations? We can't promise you that. But what I can promise you is that you are going to have much more warning. And even, if you've exhausted the possibilities to give somebody what they'd like next within your organization, you being given 6 months notice that that's the case is still a massive gift and benefit, right? And, we've said, if you aren't talking to the competition, don't let that conversation go out the window. Control that conversation within your environment. That is within your control. And lastly, it doesn't have to be managers who have this discussion, and it doesn't have to be HR and learning and talent. Of course, those are natural places where we do a lot of training because people are already invested in advancing their skill set for dialogue with people and rapport with people. But we've also seen it work really beautifully as a kind of peer-to-peer model, as a career champions model, equipping mentors to be able to use these tools. The lovely thing about it is I don't need to be more senior to you in order to give you value in your career insight using the equation, because the expert in the conversation is the individual whose career we're talking about, not the other person. And that really flips that expertise on its head, that sets up a kind of, parent-child expectation sometimes around careers, that business will sort this for me, or this, my benevolent parent will sort this for me. And we don't want that. We want a person to feel powerful and able to have agency.
Absolutely. And we hope that through listening to the podcast episodes, you'll really see it bear out in terms of how valuable a coaching culture is around career conversations and how helpful it can be to really hear somebody think and be a sounding board for them to diagnose, what's really going on for them in their career at the moment. What would be even better in terms of the job they're in, and how can you support them in that? So do check out the previous episodes if you haven't already and see how easy it is to witness the magic of the equation as it happens.
I think one of the things that's really interesting about the episodes we've done so far, Zoe, is that not everyone is in transition, right? And a lot of the time you think about, a career conversation should happen at key moments of transition. But actually, if you listen to the conversations, they're often with people who really like their work, who are really excited about the organization they're working for and the job that they are doing. But there is nevertheless a constant inner dialogue about how do I hone and refine my perspective or my strategy on my careers. for example, if you listen to Alex, a BBC journalist who, loves his work, he's asking the question, do I have to specialize in order to continue to grow? And if I don't specialize, what's my niche? What's my angle, right? So someone who loves their work is not going anywhere soon. So it isn't the case that by virtue of opening up a career conversation, the person suddenly starts going, must leave this business. That isn't, often what happens. But of course, when people are at a choice point, they're jumping off your graduate scheme, the apprenticeship scheme, or they are integral to your succession planning, even more important to be in there and in the dialogue. And that's a point where if you haven't built up the relationship through nurturing their career in that continuous way, it may be quite difficult for them to shift gears to be really transparent about the transitions that they might want to make. So starting early, I think, is another thing you really notice from the podcast, the value of those. And, when I listen, for example, also to, say, Holly, she talks about a skill set of consistency, right? So sometimes also through the equation, people discover that their talents are not just specific to the hard skills that they work in, but actually are really transferable across other areas of the business. And they could apply them to different products, passions, interests as your business evolves. So the more that you're able to understand how is this person constituted and what's important and valuable to them in terms of their skill set, the better you can deploy them and the better business benefit you get. And the more focused they become on just delivering great value within your organization, almost making them unpoachable. How about in your podcast interviews? Are there any that really stand out for you, Zoe, just as a closing thought about the value of a career conversation?
Yeah, but I think a couple sort of spring to mind particularly. So with Jeffries, for example, who's a coach, executive coach and facilitator, an amazing facilitator as well. I think what helps through the conversation is for them to really be able to articulate what it is they bring, if you like. And so for Jeffrey, it's very much about him really realizing his superpower, if you like, in terms of bringing Jeffrey to the room when he is engaging with clients and working to develop programs. And that's the sort of uniqueness of the equation. It's not about the job title, coach, facilitator. It's about what they bring to the table. And so going through the equation really helps you to be specific about what it is that you bring and how you use those skills. So while skills can be common, and I think Jeffrey does talk about this, we can share skills. So you and I as coaches will be great listeners, but it's how we do them individually and how we bring that to the forefront that makes us different, I guess. Then I think for Paul, it was a huge transition for Paul, moving from a 35-year career in HSBC to establishing himself as a consultant in a company that develops fintechs. I think for him, it was about really understanding those transferable skills and going really right back to skills that were really there early on. We talked about sort of childhood memories around judo and coaching and training people, and those skills that he was using there are transferable and have continued to be with him throughout his journey. And it's sort of recognizing that, I think, is really important when we come to huge transitions where we perhaps have been in a role in an organization for a long time and we're looking to maybe move into something different and kind of questioning, well, what is it that I can bring and how does that transfer?
So I hope this has won you over to the idea that career conversations can have huge business value and impact and be very, very simple, much, much simpler and much cheaper than a whole bunch of other interventions you might be considering. And do drop us a line with your feedback, pod@thecareerequation.com. We're always interested to hear. And if you would like to be on, either having the formula coaching experience with us or just sharing a bit about careers in your industry and any conundrums that you're looking at for 2025, we would love to invite you on and have a great discussion. So until then, keep solving those career conundrums and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Career Equation podcast.
Stay connected with us on socials for more career insights, behind-the-scenes moments, and updates on upcoming episodes. And if you'd like to work with us, visit the Career Equation website or click the links in the show notes.
Remember, the Career Equation isn't just a podcast, it's a journey towards unlocking your full potential, enjoying your life, and doing remarkable stuff.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success.
And don't forget to share your thoughts and feedback with us. Your input shapes the future of our show.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success. This is Erica Sosna
and Zoë Schofield. Signing off.